Well, Barry, welcome.
24. I feel like Jack Bauer now. It's my favourite TV show, 24. Uh, yeah, I can't believe it. I can't believe we've got to 24 and we're still only in 1991 or 2 or something.
I know we've got
About 400 more to do.
start now. Let's go back to 1991.
Hmm.
Okay, so you really hit 1991 at full speed. You were trying to get back to working with proper music artists again, and was that a conscious reset for you, Barry?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you got to bear in mind, I never had a plan, and still don't. 54 years later, I didn't have a plan to do these things. These things invited me in, and I just said, "We'll give it a try." But I'm a music fan. I grew up with my sisters and brothers playing Cilla Black and Tom Jones and the Kinks and the Beatles. So music was always around me. In San
Mm.
Francisco, we talked about the first song that really made me stop. Oh. And I walked back downstairs because I'd heard this song and I thought, wow, I want to hear that again.
Mm.
So I'd always been into music, and of course I was doing music and managing artists. But when we got into the nightclub scene, a nightclub primarily would have perhaps a big name on a Friday and Saturday, and not such big acts on in the week, which I thought was stupid because Friday and Saturday were always going to be full anyway because it's the weekend. So why not put the big acts on in the week to pull people in?
Yeah.
But I realised very quickly where Lulu might be doing a gig on a Saturday in a fabulous club in the north. On a Wednesday, they might have a little cabaret singer. They might have a duo. They might have a comedian. So very quickly I learned that it wasn't all music. A week in the life of any cabaret venue, nightclub or bar was lots of different things. It might be an afternoon jazz on a Sunday. So I realized that. So we fell into that. The issue, and I love the novelty acts. I started the Dome, as we talked about, with, woman with her hair tied in rope and hanging from the roof serving drinks, crocodile,
Mm.
boxing kangaroos. I loved all of that because they were visionary and they were new things.
Mm.
What I didn't like, and it became, in the 80s, the late part of the 80s, was a lot of it was about, getting your top off, getting your breasts out. There was lots of strippers had become, a new thing.
Mm.
Like, they were more acceptable. It had often only been in gay clubs or private bars. They'd become more mainstream and stuff.
Mm.
But, I thought since time immemorial, people have took the clothes off. So there's nothing new in that. Nothing new in that at all. There's something new in a boxing kangaroo. So for me, it's always been about the music. Always. I've got 10,000 CDs and cassettes. I've got 25,000 vinyls still here. I've got 8 tracks. I've got, mini discs. It's always been about the music. And I was trying to drag us back to music because we were getting pulled into these other things. And I'd had a bit of a conflict with Yusuf, and he was doing it. He was doing what he was supposed to do. He was getting us work. He was bringing
Mm.
money in, but it wasn't. I weren't proud when we had a topless women boxers on stage, and I weren't proud when I saw 5 topless women Christmas, and I weren't that proud of any of that.
Mm.
Whereas I was proud if we got an act on, even a good unknown act. I said, "That's us. We've got that person on there. Maybe this is their big break."
Mm. Mm.
Mm.
So you were booking the real thing a lot at that time.
Yeah, well, they were huge. See, they were a huge club act, and we got
Yeah.
to know them. And they had a lot of hits. And again, it was we were doing all these lowly acts, but we were doing the big names. The real thing was just a new one that came on the books. Edwin Starr at the time had done quite a few, and I think it might have been Edwin's manager that introduced us to the real thing, if I recall.
Yeah.
So they were great, and at this time, nightclubs in the 70s were more cabaret shows. In the 80s, there were more disco.
Mm.
So as that flew into the early 90s, it was disco. So bands like The Real Thing that would have perhaps done the Birmingham Odeon in the 70s or early 80s would now be doing nightclubs with backing tracks. So
Wow.
it was a natural evolution in terms of for them, and they earned, probably got about £1,500 a time back then. And it was a backing track. They didn't need to pay a band. There was just 3 of them on stage doing all the hits, doing all the dances, and all the women were swooning. So for me, I was just wow, it's another name act on a
Yeah.
sort of bedpost. It wasn't something I planned, but it was there always.
Amazing. So of course you come from man, you sort of the real thing to Suddenly, you're in court as an expert witness, not for plumbing this time, but
No,
for assessing the commercial future of a band. How on
yeah.
earth did that come
Again,
about?
that's really weird. Now, obviously, I'm in the music business and I've been in the press and people know about me, even if I'm not famous, but people know about me, right? So I got a phone call from a guy. He said, "Hi, Barry. Can I send you a cassette?" I said, "Yes, mate, you're welcome to." And it was a band called Presence. They sent me a cassette and it was a bit of a rock band and I really liked it. And he called me 3 days later. "Did you get the cassette?" I said, "Yeah." "What do you think?" I said, "Really good." I said, "Actually, well produced, well done, What's your plans when you're going to release it? What are you looking for?" He said, "Well, actually, we got a problem." I said, "What's that then?" He said, "Well, we got to go to court about the name." I said, "What do you mean?" "Well, the band was called Presence
Mm.
and they'd been working for more than a couple of years putting this stuff together. And the
Mm.
one day, one of the band got a call to say, 'Oh my God, I can't believe it. I've been in HMV and I've just bought your record.'" And he's like, "Really? We haven't released a record." "Well, no, of course you have. It's huge presence. It's your logo." "Really?" So they went to the shop to explore it. And it turns out a very big famous name.
Mm.
And also, coincidentally, probably, don't think he nicked their name. It was a name that was around. They used the name Presence, but mysteriously, the logo and the name Presence was almost the same.
Oh my goodness.
So when they found up the record company and they said, got hold of this guy, or might have been his manager,
Mm.
and then they got hold of him personally then, and he said, "What's your problem?" He said, "Well, you've nicked our name." He said, "What do you mean nicked our name?" He said, "Well, we've been Presence for 2 or 3 years now." He said, "You've just released a record." He said, "Yeah." He said, "What are you going to do about it?" He said, "Well, I don't think you can just use our name. I don't think that's allowed." He said, "Look," and he was a big name, really big name. He said, "What are you going to do about it?" He said, "Well, I'll take you to court." He said, "Okay, crack on." Now, this kid, clearly incensed because it was his baby and he'd really worked hard to make it happen. And I know the investment, not financial, but the time in
Yeah.
these projects can take years and years and years before you even see daylight. Um, he went off. I cannot believe that he got it because this is where I came into the play. He got legal aid to take this guy to court. I mean, they must have been giving it away for something at that time, got it with a lollipop or something because he
My
got legal
goodness.
aid. And he contacted me. He said, "Well, what I need to do," he said, "I need some expert witnesses." He said, I've already got one, but I need someone like you that can confirm that it's commercially viable." I said, "What do you need?" He said, "Well, we are going to court. We got a court date. I need an expert witness." And I got paid something like about 300, 400 quid. It was quite a lot of money
Mm.
for an hour in court. Anyway, also at the time was Pink Floyd, major rock band, as you know, another brick in the wall. Their
Mm.
accountant was there as an expert witness. Now, what
Oh.
I had to do, I had to tell the judge um, whether I thought it was commercially viable or not. And then the accountant, I presume, was going to say, what could a band earn in a 10-year period? Well, Pink Floyd would have earned, hundreds of millions, really.
Yeah.
And that's where I came in. And I had to make that decision whether I thought it would work or not, really. And I thought, okay, how do you assess that? Now, it's not, is a band any good? It's not, do I like a band? If you're an expert, you
Mm.
have to detach yourself from the likability factor. You have to detach yourself from the people.
Mm.
And that's just something I guess I just learned as an experience with all the people. And
Mm.
you had to be objective. Is this a pile of tosh and is nobody ever going to play it on the radio? Is nobody ever going to want to listen to it? Is it just a band that are having the time of their lives in a youth club
Mm.
going nowhere? Well, I thought and I only had a cassette at the time, was commercially viable, really potential, and they could release it as an album. And that's all I had to write, and I did.
Mm.
And I had to stand up in court and say that to the judge. And, that was it. Thank you very much. Off you went.
Oh.
350, 400 quid plus
Oh
travel, I
my
think it was.
goodness.
I'm like, oh, do one of these every Friday, you know. So it was brilliant. And again, nothing that I'd planned and nothing I'd sought, you know what I mean?
That year, Slade got together for the 25th wedding anniversary fan club party. So, did you realise at the time that this would be the last time they ever perform live together?
Well, as you know, I mean, Dave kept coming in and out my dreams dressed in silver, and
Yes.
I'd become very good friends with Nod, and He had a Radio 2 show, and I used to find him these great American soul tracks that he used to play. I was also, and he was Barry Toombs. I'm just attracting for Barry Toombs. Oh, I used to annoy me, he did. But we become quite good friends. And he said, "Oh, you're going to come over? The fan club are holding this 25th anniversary thing and
Yeah.
all that." I said, "Well, yeah, lovely. Where is it? Wolverhampton, where else?" And I went, and I remember talking to Nod a lot. And I said, "Look, Nod, people want to get yours." He goes, "No, no, just stay with me, stay with me." I think he felt comfortable with me because a
Yeah.
lot of people there would have been fans, but they were strangers.
Yeah.
Dave was off doing what Dave will do, bobbed about, jumped up and down like a clown. But that, he said a great thing to the rest of the Slade. He said, "You write them, I'll sell them." And that
Yeah.
was exactly what happened. He didn't
Oh,
write the songs, but he definitely sold them because of his character.
yeah.
So they'd already stopped playing. They already hadn't, they would no touring anymore. They'd already decided not to, they hadn't split up as in not working together.
Yeah.
They just were taking a break. They'd been on the road. I mean, I think they toured for 10 years before they got the first record deal. And so there was a band playing. There was a rock band on, and the fan club were there, and they're meeting them, lots of pictures. And it wasn't so much like phones like we did. There was lots of cameras. It wasn't lots of phones like there is now. And anyway, the fan club guy, Malcolm, I think his name was, he was doing talk, presented them all four of them with a like a glass sort of trophy thing, and
Mm.
they were all thank you, and the fans were cheering, and of course they were on stage. So Malcolm said, "Look, guys, as you're up here, maybe you want to play us a track." And they said to the, of course, the audience went mad, screaming, "Yeah, what do you think?" So they looked at each other. They went and picked up their instruments like they'd just done a gig the night before, and they played Johnny Be Good. And
Really?
it was incredible. It was
Oh,
absolutely incredible. But they never played live again together after that night, ever.
oh, what
Not ever.
a shame, isn't it? What was the
Yeah.
atmosphere like? It must have been amazing.
Oh, he was mad because it was a fan club, so a fan club event. So everybody in there was a Slade fan. It weren't some people had dragged along their mate to a Slade gig and said, "Oh, I don't really like this." Everybody was a Slade worshipper. They were all gods, and they were a huge band. So the atmosphere was for a small venue. I say small venue, probably hold about 300 or 400.
Mm.
Was as big as being in an arena with 100,000 people. It was electric, and me, Barry Terms, the builder from Northfield, was chatting away to Nod like we grew up and went to school together.
Yeah,
But it,
amazing.
it was brilliant that I was there to see that. I mean,
Mm.
obviously Slade, Dave put a band together later on and called it Slade 2 with the drummer, and then they were allowed to use the name Slade again after a while. So it was one of those things where I never planned to be at. I was there, and it's a part of history, and it's the last time Slade ever played together live, and they were an amazing live band. That was the thing.
Oh, they were
Yeah,
just
yeah,
brilliant, weren't they?
yeah, yeah.
Gosh, I remember there was a film out, wasn't there?
Slide in Flame. And
Oh,
funny
was that?
enough,
Oh,
Slide in Flame, yeah, it was just released back at the cinema last year, the 50th anniversary of
oh,
Slide in Flame.
yeah. I
So you
went to
must have
see
been
it.
two when you went to see it.
Oh, look,
You must have been being breastfed by your mum while Slide in Flame was on. Yeah, it's the 50th
a little bit
anniversary.
older than that.
And I think they remastered the film or something. Yeah,
Wow,
so
gosh, and
so
yeah,
still selling. I mean, they're in adverts all the time. Slade stuff is, it's always
mm,
in commercials. Even in America, I've seen it in commercials and stuff. So
amazing.
still makes a lot of money. And the
Mm,
Christmas song obviously never ends, does it? Merry
yeah.
Christmas, everybody.
Mm. So I know in the last podcast, you were saying you were trying to move away from like sleazier bookings and
Mhm.
things around that time. But because like you'd mentioned that you'd booked up a year ahead,
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
were still committed to those bookings.
Yeah, it was like I'm thinking, how many more Willies have I got to see on stage before I can just watch Shawty and enjoy it? I'd expect Shawty just come on and get his todger out, and do a loop the loop. But yeah, that was the problem. But you got to honour business, and you also got to remember whether they were a stripper getting £50 a night or a major act,
Mm,
that was their living. So
yeah.
you don't want to. I don't want them to not earn a living. I just don't want to go down in history as the man that sold the most boobs and willies to the nightclub industry. Do you know what I mean? I'd much rather be known for finding someone with a great song. Definitely.
It must have been so frustrating for you though.
Well, it was, but the good thing is I never really went to many of the gigs. It was only that I joke about strippers, but the main reason was I did a lot of gay clubs and they were really good money. It was called the Pink Pound because you had two men, they had no children, They shared the same clothes, they shared the same car, and basically they were rich, richer than a normal married couple that were perhaps having children and stuff. So it was called the Pink Pound. So we did a lot of, I would say in the 80s, I would say 80 or 90% of our business was gay clubs. But the gay clubs, for some reason, loved a stripper. They just loved to start the night with a stripper. You know what I mean? And then that's fine. And I didn't, and it never fazed me. It didn't bother me, at all. But it just, and it wasn't saying I don't like a stripper. I just didn't like the fact that the only real talent was a girl going on stage who, she might have a good voice, but they were only there because they're taking the clothes off. They were
Yeah.
only there, the topless women boxers and the dance troops.
Mm.
So it just, for me, it was like, well, I don't even want to earn that money. And it
Yeah.
wasn't dirty money, and I'm not being derisory to them. I just thought this isn't who I'm a music person. And that's what I wanted to be. And it took us, I think it took about a good 18 months in the end to really get away because we started picking up other bigger names, as well at
Mm.
the time. So that was for me was what I wanted to develop,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, you must have been thrilled, at that time as well, because you added Shiwaddy Waddy to your live bookings, didn't you?
Shawadi
So,
Waddy, yeah.
so how did that come about?
Well, again, we met Dave Bartram at I think it was Central Weekend. It was one of the TV shows. And we met Dave Bartram. He said, "Oh, were you? Oh, BT Management. I've heard of you. You've got all sorts going on. Can we book the band?" But at the same time, within this period, we booked Sunita, who she's still around now because people know her a lot with Simon Cowell, but Sunita had quite a few hits. And then we had Kenny Thomas, and he was amazing. He's just doing a big tour now. So we'd already started getting those other names. And for me, it was kind of a recognition of what I was trying to have BT management known as. I wanted
Yes.
to be a music management company.
It
I
was
didn't,
almost
yeah,
like you
yeah.
were stepping up a level, wasn't it?
It
Yeah.
was, but that wasn't. I didn't want to. Oh, let's step up because it's a better place. It just suited me better. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
just it suited me personally better to have that musical background. Really,
Yeah. And of course, around that time, you were booking some major Radio 1 names like Simon Bates, Steve Wright, Gary Davis, Jackie Brambles. I mean, how important was that Radio 1 connection to your credibility?
I would say probably at that time more important than the big star artists because
Really?
really because Radio One was huge. Radio One and the Radio One Roadshow was the biggest thing in the country, and they were rock stars. I mean,
Mm.
we put an artist, like the real thing, maybe got 1,500 quid, and that sort of act was getting about 1,500 to 2 grand. But Radio One DJs were getting 2 and 3 grand, and they'd only had to appear for an hour, do a few quizzes, play a few records. There was
Mm.
no selfies then. They did sign pictures and give out cards, but they were getting more money. But it was very credible. I mean, it was
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny because DLT's just come on air again now. He's got a show now on Heritage Chart, and he's not been around for a long time. But again, he was another one that we worked with, and Mike Reed, obviously, who we deal with
Mm.
now still. So for me, I would say credibility wise, working with the Radio One DJs kind of cemented these people are important.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really believe that because we wrong. I remember my sister wrong. She said, "Oh, Baz, I remember my family still don't know what I do." 54 years later, Baz, do you go in the Radio One show in Cornwall? I said, "No, I'm not going. Why, Pam?" She said, "Oh, a friend of mine's on holiday in Cornwall next week." I said, "Yeah." And the Radio One Road show there, I said, "Yeah, it's great. I love it. It's a great time down there. Time to have a great time." She said, "Oh, no, no, no. He wants to do the quiz." I said, "Well, when he goes, they'll come on early. The producer will say before the show, we're going live in 20 minutes. We are going to do a quiz. We're looking for volunteers." And then Colin said, "Oh, no, 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 he doesn't want to do any of that." I said, "Well, that's the process."
Mm.
I said, "That you go, you're on, you're in an audience. The producers shout out a few names, chat to a few of you. They realise some of you are not that good, some of you are good. They choose the four people. Then during the show, you'll come on." I said, "But what?" He said, "Oh no, he's very nervous about doing it like that. He'd rather just be on."
Yeah.
I said to my sister, "Well, where do I come into it?" She said, "Well, can't you ring him up?" So we did. We rung up David Hamilton and said, "Look, Dave, we've my sister's friend," and I didn't lie. I said, "My sister's friend, and he's on, Lord, he wants to be on the panel," and we got him on the panel. I
Oh,
mean, that's
wow.
how powerful we were within
Yeah.
within that. People used to go to not like the night out theatre, which is was the big theatre in Birmingham for years, and you had to wear a shirt and tie. Always had to wear a shirt and tie. People would go in there and say, we BT management, and they got wind of it and they let them in. They used to keep shirts, a tie, and a jacket. The road, not the road crew, so the bouncers, as we call them then, the doormen, really. They used to keep them. So if you be BT manager, here's a shirt, here's a tie, you can go in, And we phoned up, we want to be there. Yeah, come in. We were that big, but not. I didn't want to be big, but like if I phone up and say, look, I want to come and see Slade or Gary Glitter or whoever was on at the time. Yeah, okay, mate, name's on the door. And that
Wow.
that must mean somehow, and we were in all the nightclub magazines as well. Our name was in a
Mm.
lot, and next to the very big agents. So,
Yeah.
and I think I think my dimples helped a lot. I'm going to be honest.
Well,
I think it was that.
I'm sure they did.
I'll work those dimples. If there's any sign of them flattening out, I stuck a pencil in my cheek at night.
Yeah, I don't know what you like. So in June that year, you linked up with the incredible Beach Boys for a Birmingham concert. Did you
I
get
did, yeah.
did you
Yeah, I
ever get
did.
blasé about working with legendary names like that, Barry?
Well, obviously, I'd worked with the Beach Boys since 1982, so I'd probably known them 10 years by the time that particular gig come on.
Yeah.
And it was quite funny because you know Monica Price, one of my clients,
Mm,
obviously. And around that time, I'd been to see them, and then they were back in Birmingham. And
mm,
I got a phone call from Jeff from the Beach Boys and said, "Hi, Barry." He said, "Going to see you later." I said, "Where are you here then?" He said, "Where?" I said, "Well, I'm in Hollywood." He said, "Hollywood?" He said, "We're in Birmingham." I said, "No." He said, "We're doing a gig tonight and I've left tickets on the door for you." I said, "I won't get back in time, mate. It's 11-hour flight." So he said, "Well, I've left your tickets on the door, ring someone up, family." I rung Monica, and I'd only known Monica for a very short time. I didn't know her that well. We
mm,
just liked some ideas that we talked about. And I said, "Listen, go and see the Beach Boys tonight." I said, "There's 2 tickets on me." She went backstage, she did some videos with them. She couldn't believe it.
mm,
And that's kind of um I did get blasé, but it wasn't meant to be blasé. It was just, well, that happens. That
mm.
happens to me. I get a call from the Beach Boys or somebody. It happens to me. It's not. I never dismissed it, and I've never. And you can probably tell with the joy in which I repeat a lot of these things.
Yeah.
I never, ever regretted doing it, but I also never took it for granted, knowing it could stop the very next day.
Yeah.
So I was always like, "This is great. Let's get to work and get some work done." And of course, as I said to you, the on a commercial level, because I was supposed to be a businessman as well, rather than just this clown.
Yeah.
I was trying to get the lesser known acts, not because I didn't want them to work. I mean, I'll give you the example. You've just mentioned Shawadi Wadi, right?
Mm,
So, and this is back in the early 90s. Shawadi Wadi got 3,000 for a gig, right? £3,000. We got 10%, so we got £300
yeah.
commission, right? We didn't have to go. We didn't have to set the equipment up. We didn't have to book hotels. We didn't have to drive them. They go on stage. Everybody have a great time. I'd get 300 quid. So
Yeah.
that to me made sense. If you could do that a few times a week, you're right. Now we then had Methane Man, who was a man that used to trump to music, right? He used to have a microphone. He used to trump to tunes and all sorts, and he was called Methane Man. Now he used to get 175 quid a night. A lot of money for a guy to do that. We got 7.5% because we'd obviously, knowing that percent, we'd obviously split it with his agent.
Yeah.
So we got £13, 13 pence for his gig.
Yeah.
Now, same paperwork, same yellow contract, pink contract, white contract,
Mm,
post it off, get the pink one back, get the green one back, send the pink one to them, send the green one to them, keep the white one on file. Same work, but we
yeah.
got £13, 13 pence instead of £300. And then Dave Hill, Dave Hill, personal appearance, not concert. He
Mm,
did personal appearances for us. Now, again, he got 700 quid to go and just walk around for an hour in clubs. We got 15% because we wasn't splitting it with his agent. So we got 105 quid. So it varied dramatically what you could get. But my
mm.
principle was, let's get the big guys because you get more money. You know what I mean? I mean, that's just 3 examples of the exact fees that we were making at the time, varying from £13 to £300 for the same paperwork. So it was a no-brainer to me to go for the bigger acts, really.
Yeah, absolutely. So around this time, Barry, Slade were back in the studio again, recording
Hmm.
Radio Wall of Sound. does that mean to you personally after everything you've been through together? Because you've been
Well,
through a lot
what?
with the guys,
Yeah,
haven't you?
yeah, yeah. And what? Well, to me, Slade was still Slade, and I'm still playing on the Slade records. But Slade had a great back catalogue, big albums, and they were with Polydor, and their manager. Um, that kind of looked after them at the time. He had a reggae record label, so he had his own record label, but they were signed to Polydor, and there was a bit of a problem because Dave and Jim wrote the songs, so Don, the drummer, and Dave Hill didn't get any royalties. They if they were doing a tour, they'd get probably got the same money on stage. They probably got 25% each. I would have thought.
Yeah.
But from a royalty point of view, they got none. I mean, Dave wrote a few tracks, but all the hits were written by Jim and Nod. So, you know, say Nod was worth 10 million, Dave was probably only worth 1 million. So there was those issues going on. And I think Nod had tried, and I had a lot of personal conversations with Nod, and he told me he wanted to do all these things. We used to go for a curry together. And he said, we want to try and help Dave. And, because Dave and Nod always remain friends. The others have all fallen out, but they remain friends. And he said, we're going to try and restructure something. We've got a deal going on where we're going to release all the back catalogue on CD,
Mm,
right? Because the CDs had obviously kicked in the 80s and that. So a lot of it had been on vinyl, but they were going to do the entire back catalogue was going to be re-released. But to start it off, they wanted to do a greatest hits album,
mm,
right? Which was fine. But also, Jim Lee said, well, I've written a great song that I think we can do a greatest hits album, but let's put one new song on there and
mm,
let's put it out as a single. Then Slater back, and all of a sudden, all the back catalogue would sell to the new
mm.
fans because there was always new people coming on board. And that's exactly what happened. Radio Wall of Sound was released as a single from Slade's Greatest Hits. I had Norma Lewis, who I represented. She was in the studio, and she did backing vocals on the B side.
Mm.
The track went in the charts. Slade did Top of the Pops. I went to Top of the Pops with Slade, and in all my career, it was the only time I ever did Top of the Pops.
Really?
I had lots of artists on Top of the Pops, but you're working, you're not always there. So it
Mm.
was the only time I ever physically went. And if you remember the song "Always Look on the Bright Side of
Oh,
Life,"
yeah.
right? Well, that he was on singing it. Eric Idle was singing that song. So we were
Mm.
there, and I remember Slade had come on with the big leather coats, and they hadn't been on for probably a couple of years. I remember talking to Paul Young, and he said, "Oh, isn't it great to see Slade back?" I said, "Oh, it's amazing." I said, "I'm so thrilled they got a new single out." And then Eric Idle come on with "Always Look on the Bright Side of Life," and we had to do this stupid dance for the student. The video's on YouTube. Anyway, we did it, and I got a cream pie. I had to slap it in the DJ's face on top of the pops because that's what they used to do. And they all dance through the audience, always look on the bright side of life, blah, 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 and then sing along. And then I've had a few people say, "Barry, is this you?" I've just seen this video and it is me. I'm actually dancing like a prat round there, but I got to put a cream pie in the DJ's face. So that was amazing. Again, it was Top of the Pops, that wonderful thing. I was there with Slade because I knew Slade, and,
Yeah.
and and I got a personal unusual thing, where I got to do this thing with Eric Idle and his band. So that
Amazing.
was amazing as well, terrific. But that
Amazing.
that became a big hit for him, and the what you call it, the um single had been a chart, but it made the greatest hits be huge, and
Yeah.
then all the back catalogue resold. And I think they probably did a little deal to give the other two guys a bit more money, a little share of the royalties,
Yeah.
probably,
Yeah.
because all the money was going to the two writers, really. Which is how it is. It was the same in Take That.
Yeah.
Gary Barlow's probably worth 20 times more than the rest of Take That.
Mm.
But that's the nature of the beast, really.
Well, that's it,
Definitely.
isn't it? I think a few
Mm.
of them have written a few songs, haven't they? I watched the new Netflix
Yeah, yeah.
documentary on them recently,
Mhm.
and I think a couple of them have wrote songs, haven't they? Take that.
Yeah, they have obviously because they realised the money.
Yeah,
They
absolutely.
realised that all the money's going to Gary Barlow, and if they wrote a song, and what Gary would have probably in the early days, the record company said, "No, Gary's a songwriter. It's
Mm.
got to be all these songs, or at least someone we publish." But then as they left the management, left the record deals, I would think Gary probably said, "If we're doing a new album, guys, both contribute a song. He'll give you some income." Because I remember George Michael with Careless Whisper, I believe it is.
Mm.
Or it was either that or Last Christmas. It may have been Last Christmas. He said to Andrew Ridgely, he said, "Listen, I've put your name on this. He said, but I didn't write. He said, no, but I've put your name on this and you'll never ever be short of money.
Oh,
And it was the Christmas song last Christmas. And that he was saying, I write all the hits, but if your name's on this, you'll never be short of money.
yeah, amazing.
And I remember Andrew Ridgely talking about that last year somewhere at some event.
Mm,
So yeah,
amazing.
so it was great for me to be part of Slade and and be fans of theirs. And I went to see Dave's version of Slade last Christmas, and they were great. I mean,
Yeah.
there was only Dave Hill, the original band member, but the songs were Slade, and it was
Yeah.
a memory, and it was of a time. And I don't think he's sort of fit anymore. I've got to say, he ate all the pies, but definitely still sounded great.
It's where this story takes an extraordinary turn. It really does. And of course, this is a royal turn of events, isn't it? On the 27th of June, 91, you took Dave Hill to a
Again,
Birmingham school for the
yeah,
blind
I
where
did.
the children performed Chance to Be, which was a
That's right.
song that you helped put together.
Hmm.
Now, how did that event come about?
Well, again, it's similar to the court case, that similar to that. I got a phone call from somebody I didn't know. Hi, Mr. Tomes, so and so, so yeah. I'm the chair of the blind school in Harborne. I wonder if we could have a meeting. Yeah, I mean, do you need help? He said, well, we're a big charity. Always worked with charity. I've worked with charity all my life. And funny enough, I was offered an MBE some years ago because of my work, and I turned it down. I shouldn't have done because my mum would have given me a clap around the ear hole. But the Chamber of Commerce wanted me to they'd put 26 people forward. They all got an MBE and they wanted me to have one because I do lots of charity work and don't
Yeah,
talk about it.
yeah.
So off I went to see him and he said, look, he said, got a very big guest coming on such a date. We want to do something special and unique. I said, well, who is it? How big? He said, can't tell you. Well, when he said he can't tell you, I knew it was going to be either a prime minister or one of the royals. I
Mm,
knew that. I knew the score really. So I said, all right, well, what about if there's kids, what about, would they like to perform a song? What if I got you a couple of famous pop stars to come in? Oh, that'd be great. Maybe get the kids to sing. And then I was told, I think it was only a couple of days before that it was the Queen Mum that was coming to
mm,
see the kids. So we'd got this song, and one of the songwriters, I'd introduced him to Dave, and Dave, being smart, signed the publishing for the song. He said, "Well, I'll work on it with you, but I want the publishing." So Dave did a publishing deal. We recorded a version of the song. We got a backing track together. We
mm,
went, and the event was going to be at lunchtime. Now we got free studio time from Rich Bitch Studios in Selly Oak,
mm,
and that was a guy called Rob that we'd worked with for years. Slade, all the big stars had used the studio,
mm,
and we'd all said we're going to go to lunch. Oh, let's go to lunch, Rob. Yeah, next time, go to lunch. Anyway, I said to him, I said, look, we're going to do lunch next Tuesday. He said, okay, brilliant. I said, I'll ring you on Monday to remind you. And I knew when I rung on the Monday, he said, sorry, Baz, can't do it, too busy. So I
mm,
rung him on the Monday, said, we're going to lunch on the Tuesday. He said, no, Baz. I said, no, listen, you are going to lunch and you won't wear jeans and you will wear a jacket and you will wear a shirt. And he said, this is a lunch I need to be at, don't I? I said, I think you do, mate. Didn't tell him. Dave Hill knew about it,
mm,
picked him up. We all went off to this school, and the Queen Mum came, and a delightful lady, and the children all sang the song,
mm.
and really that was sort of going to be it. That was, we just did that for the day because they wanted something very special, and they
Yeah,
obviously wanted to say something to the Queen. But we've done this just for you. It's for you personally. Blah blah blah. So of course, when we get there, and Rob finds out that we're having lunch with the Queen Mum, as it were, um, he said, "Oh, good job I didn't wear jeans." I said, "That's what I said to you." I said, "I couldn't let you pull out, mate, because this has been planned, but I couldn't tell you." So we're there, and it was lovely, and the Queen Mum was great. She had a lovely time, and the
mm,
Royals are always great. They were so gracious. They
yeah.
they must sit there thinking, "I'm poor bleeding stiff. When do we finish? Get me a cup of tea. I need a pee." You know what I mean? They must do because they're human. But she was gracious. We did the song. They loved it. Everyone was happy. And we come away, and I was talking to Dave. I said, "But wasn't that moving? That was really, well, really moved me, that did. And he said, yeah. So I said, look, um, maybe, I said, if the school want, we could maybe go in the studio, finish the song, get some more backing vocals on. We got Norma on, we got this Teresa Mayuko from Portugal on. I said, maybe I'll put it as a single on Gotham Records.
Yeah.
Really? I said, well, yeah, it's my record label. I can do what I like. So we went in and recorded it more and put more on it and made it a full blown single, and then I released it on Gotham Records. And the very first time the copies arrived, I cut the box open with the tape, Stanley knife, took the first copy out, and I posted it to the Queen Mum.
Oh,
And
wow.
I got the amazing letter that you saw from
Yeah.
the Queen Mum thanking me for it. So we
Oh,
released it, and even I think last year a couple of fans, and this is we're talking about 1990s, early 90s. A couple of fans got, oh, can I buy a copy of the record with Dave? So I'm still getting £5 at a time for them. Gotta make your money, ain't you, Bab?
you have actually.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that brings me, I'm going to have to ask this.
Mhm.
What was the story about the team not being asked not to say anything about the studio name?
Well, obviously, as they do, the roles are very gracious, and the Queen Mum was asked to thank everybody. So she obviously thanked the chairman of the school and the teachers, thanked the beautiful children, thanked Barry Tones from Gotham Records because that was the capacity I was there under, and thanked and obviously I've done the list, and I said, don't, please do thank Rich Bitch Studios because they gave us £500 worth of studio time free. Anyway, the Queen's Equerry come over and said, the Queen Mum's Equerry, I said, what's the problem? She said, oh, she said, we've got everything, all the names there, there's no problem at all. She's happy to do that. But do you mind if you don't mention the studio? I said, oh, no. I said, please. I said, if you need to, I said, if there's too many names for her to read out, take mine off. I do want the studio mentioned because they give their time free.
Mm.
I'm quite happy. She said, oh, no, no, it's not that. She said, but she doesn't really want to say Rich Bitch. And me, being a brummie, right? I said, why? She's a rich bitch herself, isn't she? Someone doesn't get sent to the tower. Can you imagine? But we come to an agreement, and she just said, we'd like to thank the recording studio. That's what we said. I said, I don't embarrass the Queen Mum, but to me it was bizarre. She was a rich bitch. Perhaps just say we named the studio after her. You know, why not?
Oh my God, that's just incredible. Only you could tell a story like that, Barry.
Exactly. And it be true. That's the stupidity here. I don't need to make these up, do I?
So in July that year, you had lunch with Marion London,
That's
who
right.
managed
Lulu's manager.
Lulu.
Mhm.
Yeah. And
And Doris Collins as well that I'd worked with, I'd done tours with. So
yeah,
Lulu was, been around forever.
of course, it was. She suggested that making a TV series about you. So why didn't you take that on board?
Well, I think what happened, we'd done a lot of things for Lulu, and I'd gone back and I'd worked with Lulu and done a few things. Even after I left Lulu, I did a few things abroad. And Mary and I had kept in touch, not like you do now with emails and texts and WhatsApp. We probably message each other once every 2 or 3 months. And the one day, oh Barry, when you're next in London, I said, oh, next week I'm down there with Norma Lewis. She said, oh, why don't we go to lunch? I thought, well, perhaps she's got a new artist, and that's in my head. I thought, well, if she's got a new artist, she wants me to work with. Anyway, I went and had lunch, and I went to her house, and I remember going into the lift. She got up to the first floor, and I got in the lift, and I thought, who's that? I turned round, and Arthur Askey was in the lift. Well, Arthur Askey was a known TV star, but he
He
was only about
was.
4 feet tall. He only come up to me about. I thought, I up. Who's in the lift? What's going on? And he was, very lovely and very sweet. And then I went in, and I think we meant to have lunch for like an hour. I think we sat for like 4 or 5 hours. She said, what are you doing? I told her all the drama
Yeah,
about, Norma having my daughter and all these things,
yeah,
and just the drama basically in my
yeah.
life. And she said, do you know what, Barry? We were all big fans of Dallas. I remember even with Lulu,
Oh
we'd go
God,
into a
yeah,
one room and watch Dallas just before the gig. She'd be on stage at 10:30, but we'd watch Dallas at 9 or whatever.
yeah,
So we were all big fans of Dallas. She said to me, she said, you know what, Barry? She said, you could be the next Dallas. I said, what do you mean? She said, well, the stories are fascinating, she said.
yeah.
And she was doing some TV stuff and that. She said, we could do your life story. I said, I love you, Marion. I really do, sweetheart. But nobody's going to be interested in the builder from Birmingham, are they? Well, she meant it. She meant it.
Yeah.
She meant that it was Now, if she was interested at this point in 1992, wait till you see the things I've done since then. It's going to
I
blow
know.
your mind. Honestly, I've done everything except landed on the bleeding moon. Really, and I'd have done that if I'd have got the chance. So yeah. So she was clearly. serious, but I was like, yeah, okay. Yeah, all right, I'll go and buy an art film and we'll make a movie kind of thing.
Yeah.
But and I just now I think what a sweet thing that was. What a wonderful sort of thing for someone to say about me, someone that was so wealthy and been involved in so much fame and stuff
Yeah.
around the world, wanted to talk to me and found everything I said that was interesting. Because
Yeah.
I think what it is, I'm so blatantly honest about stuff
Yeah.
that I don't need to dress it up. I'll tell you,
As
if
it
somebody got
is.
the willy out, say he got his willy out. You know, when I say, can I carry your bag? He said, no, you can carry me willy. I'm being serious. You know what I mean? I'm being honest. So I think it's that. I think that works a lot because I'm
Yeah.
just blatantly honest about what it is, and I don't need to make nothing up because I have had and I'm still having the most fantastic life, really. So
Yeah.
that maybe that was a missed opportunity to have a new series of Dallas.
Yeah.
Barry the oil mogul. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you see my look, I'd have got shot like JR.
Would you have gone back though?
Probably, I'd have got out the shower. I'd have been a dream, woke up and got back out the shower. I think that's what happened to Bobby Ewing, didn't he? He left and then they wanted to bring him back. So they made out the last series was a dream and
Oh
he
my
stepped out the
goodness.
shower. So great writing. But yeah, no,
Oh,
no, I'm honoured that it was even discussed, really. And that's
yeah.
how I feel about a lot of it,
But in a
So
way, when you think about it, I was going to say to you, did you ever look back and think, what if? However, in a way, you're recording your life story now through a
no,
series
well,
of podcasts,
yeah, and
which is
I am, yeah,
amazing.
and we can go on and make it a book, and we can go and make film versions of it. We
Mm,
can do video or audio podcasts. So the technology has changed completely. So it can be whatever we want it to be. It
mm,
can be an half-hour documentary. It can be a 2-hour documentary. It can
mm,
be a 3-hour film. It can be a 10-part series. So I've never thought, what if? I've never been one to regret, really, to be honest with you. I just think, shit happens sometimes and you just crack on to the next thing. But certainly, I have, and certainly I've reflected a lot in the last year or two where we've been talking about the podcast, because I'm looking back
mm.
and I never used to look back just in case the police were chasing me for nicking that coal when I was at school. We just pile up, but it's Keir Starmer will be saying, anyone that nicked coal when they're at school, stand up. 3 months in prison. So I never look back in case the copper was looking for me. Oh dear.
Began working with Timmy Mallet, and
Yeah, I mean Timmy Ballard.
um,
I've seen him recently on something. He ain't changed at all. He was either 71 40 years ago, or he hasn't aged because he's no. And again, another massive television name, a huge
absolutely,
name on television. Timmy
he
Mallet
was
was.
huge, wasn't
Yeah, and I couldn't believe that these people were phoning us up. They got cheeky sod's got my phone number.
he? Of course, you even worked with Bjorn again as well. Did you realise at the time how big they would become?
Well, what was interesting about Bjorn again, ABBA was huge, and I was never an ABBA fan. I like the Beatles. I respect what they've done and the money they've earned in the industry and the joy they bring to people. But I was never an ABBA fan. I just didn't like the cheese, really. I just didn't like it.
Yeah.
But at the time, we'd gone through this, novelty acts, then all these topless boxers and all that. Then it was going into tribute acts started to play. That started to become a thing, because it wasn't big in the 80s. It got big as it went into the 90s. And we were still doing stuff with the Dome, which is a nightclub we've talked about. And I was
Mm,
always looking to get them things. Anyway, again, phone call, BT Management. Everybody knows who we are. That was the name of the management company then, was BT Management. And phone call, hi, my name's so and so, so and so. I've got a new band together called Bjorn Again, and they're an ABBA tribute band. I said, an ABBA tribute band. I said, the real ABBA are a bloody nightmare. They're rubbish. So he's like, what? I said, well, I don't like them, but it doesn't matter what you want. He said, well, we want to put a tour together, but it's a bit of a risk. It's quite a big band, quite a big production we've got. But what we're really looking for is some venues where we can split the door. We
mm,
don't want to hire a venue for 2 grand or whatever it was, and then hopefully we sell tickets. We were hoping to do some deals where we could split the door.
mm.
And so I said, well, look, what you looking at? He said, well, you're in Birmingham. We're looking for a gig in Birmingham. I said, look, let me call you back. I said, seriously, I'm not an ABBA fan, but this is about business. And I
Mm.
spoke to them. I said, listen, I said, there's a massive new thing, big ABBA. And I'm like, me, don't like ABBA. Big ABBA are. Everybody will be here for an ABBA gig. And he said, well, we got the real ABBA. I said, well, I think so. I said, I think they've changed their name to Bjorn again. And I don't know if you're taking me seriously, but so we did a deal where they did a split deal for the door, and that was the first gig. Now Bjorn again gone on for 20, 30 years doing massive tours, but
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
the first of the gigs they ever did.
Oh
And
my
that
goodness.
was then when I realized there's money in tribute bands because it was a bit like in a record sense when we used to buy albums, and I think the albums were £2.49 when
Mm.
not in the 70s. You had a Woolworths album called Top of the Pops, and it was 99p. And
Oh
the reason it
yes.
was 99p, it was other people, it wasn't the real artists. It was the
Yeah.
real songs, but not the real artists. Well, that's how I saw the tribute acts, thinking, well, hang on, Woolworths made a fortune out of other people singing other people's songs,
Yeah.
and very quickly the tribute acts became a quite a big thing, and we got into that. We did more work with Bjorn again, but we did other stuff, and obviously the big one really that's always been there was Elvis tribute acts,
Mm.
that, and even there's a new Elvis film out now. They found 59 hours of footage in a salt mine where
Really?
Warner Brothers stored all their stuff in some salt mine or something, and
Mm.
they found 59 hours of footage, and they got all the tapes, and they spent about 2 years. And the new film of Elvis, which we've all seen Elvis 1,000 times, and I love
Yeah.
Elvis. I've been to
Mm.
Graceland 3 times, um, and but this new film is supposed to be spectacular because it's like so much unseen footage that's
Yeah.
been repaired. It's all been redone. They've enhanced the recording. So he was always I mean, they have Elvis conventions all around the world,
Mm.
but there was always money to be made, and we did that. We had tribute acts, tribute rock acts, and stuff like that.
Mm.
So that was just another area we went into, and it was evolution. It wasn't again. I was still trying to figure out how to get 15 mil pipe fixed. How do I get the solder on this? I've run out of gas. You know what I mean? Trying to light a lighter to melt the bleeding solder because I've run out of gas. But but yeah, it was all evolution, all of it. I can't take credit for all these things. I can take credit for keep going, even when I wasn't sure. I kept going, and that's where I'll take credit because I just kept going, and I'm still keeping going.
Yeah.
I'm 70 God next year. It's ridiculous.
You're
You
like a
know,
Duracell bunny, aren't you?
I am absolutely right. I should bottle it and sell it, perhaps. But I've got as much energy now as I had when I was 17. My knees are not as keen to get up so quick now. I could never be a Muslim because if I got down to prayer, I wouldn't get back up. I'd be no good at all. Friday prayers had working coming to Sunday for me. I'd still
Oh,
be down.
oh dear.
So the knees are playing up, and it's if I get an injury, which I'm doing, I still do lots of building and I make
Yeah.
stuff for gardens, as you know. It does take longer to heal. There's no question about it. But
Yeah.
mentally, whether it's because I haven't drank or smoked, since I was 15,
Yeah.
mentally, my brain's, I nearly cut myself some mornings, I tell you, when my brain starts thinking. It's that bloody sharp.
Well, in November of that year, you started working with Chris Eubank.
I know. I
Now,
mean, how ridiculous is that? How ridiculous is that?
taking him to nightclubs,
Yeah.
supporting children in need. That's quite a shift from music management. I mean, how did that partnership begin?
Well, what happened? We always did children in need. I was a big fan of charities, and I worked tirelessly for charities. Even my Christmas in July, I've been doing for 30 odd years. I've always believed that charity is something you should do. Not could you do, you should do it because people need help. So I always helped children in need, and obviously Terry Wogan was the big star then. And they always did stuff at Birmingham. I often did stuff at Pebble Mill or Radio WM.
Yeah.
But one of the nights, we then got the nightclubs. I said, look, guys, we've got an idea. Why don't we put out a children in need bucket at the stage and ask people, 2,000, 3,000 people in a nightclub, if they all put £1 in, that's 3 grand for a nightclub. We own 20 nightclubs, you know what I mean?
Mm,
It's a
mm,
lot of money.
mm.
It's 60 grand. So they all went with it. First Leisure, the chain of things, said, oh, yeah, yeah, we'll do it. Yeah, we'll do it. So we arranged. To have these yellow buckets, I think it was. And we set it up with all the managers and said, all you got to do, just get the DJ to have a box. And as people come up asking for a record, chuck £1 in and stuff like that. So that was the plan. And then Barry, that's not enough for Barry. Barry can't just do that, can he? I said, well,
No.
what we really could do with, we could do with we could do with a celebrity that goes round and collects the buckets, right? And say, right, I'm taking the bucket, and they would throw more money in because it's a celebrity.
Yeah.
That was my idea. They're going to put their quid in if they're drunk, 20 quid if they're really drunk. And some of them might take a fiver out if they're a brummie. You know what I mean? They'd have a fiver out instead of putting money in. But I said, why don't we try and get somebody like like a Chris Eubank because he was doing loads of boxing then. He was always
Mm,
all over the telly. He did 12 fights in 1 year. That was one fight a month, which a boxer normally does two a year, usually.
yeah.
He did a deal with Sky to do these 12 fights. So we knew he was, out there, and he loved the sound of his own voice, and he was very fit. So we contacted Andy Ayling or whoever it was at the agency or his management company, and I said, look, can we get Chris to fly up to Manchester? We'll pick him up in Manchester at 8 o'clock. We're
Mm,
going to go to three nightclubs, take him in a limousine, and as he goes in, they'll all cheer, some will get pictures, but we really want him to hold the bucket up and don't leave till that bucket's full. Yeah, we'll
mm,
do it, no problem at all. Agreed to do it. I remember meeting him at Manchester Airport,
yeah.
and I said, hello, mate. And the first time I seen him, he's got, hello, mate. And he says, hello, cheeky chap. And we hit it, we just got on like an house on fire from the word
Yeah.
go. And
Yeah.
he was Mr. Bloody Posh, always wore great clothes, but he always talked very posh.
Was he really
Um,
like that though, Barry?
yeah, yeah, yeah. All
Really?
the time. Yeah, always when you met him. So we got in the limousine, and we're going off to this first nightclub. And he said, "What are you gonna do?" I said, well, "Really, literally, we're going to walk you in, and don't." And obviously, although he's a fighter, he had to be careful that nobody grabbed him and injured him because
Yeah.
it could affect the fight. So we had to have two or three. I know it sounds weird, but we had to have two or three minders for Chris Eubank. He could have
Mm.
knocked everybody out. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
no.
Including the DJ. And I'd probably run off with a tin. But we literally we did it, and it was a huge success. But now we've left, and the one nightclub I think was quite late. I think the one was about 2 in the morning,
Yeah.
and he said, oh, we've got to get can we pull over and get a drink? I said, well, there's the services, but he said, no, we'll be all right. There was me and the driver, and I think Yusuf might have been with us at the time,
Mm.
and we got our own minder, but then each club provided minders. So we go into these services, and he said, "Can you get me hot water?" I said, "Hot water, but do you want a water bottle? Like, what do you want hot water for a water bottle?" I thought he's mad. He said, "No, I need a hot water." I said, "Just hot water." I know he's done. He's brought his own tea bags, right? So I get him a hot water, thinking he's taking the piss. And he said, get me a bar of chocolate. I said, a bar of chocolate? He said, bar of chocolate is a hot water. Fair enough, you're Chris Eubank. If I don't do it, you'll knock me out. I'm gonna get it. So I go back with this hot water, thinking, are you all right? Like, and chocolate, I said, little bite of chocolate gives you that lift, which it does. We all know that.
Yeah,
You have a
yeah,
little bit of Cadbury's chocolate. There are other mates available, of
yeah.
course. You gives you that lift. And he drank it. I said, have you forgot your tea bags? Did you need coffee in it? No hot water. I said, hot water. You're just drinking a cup of hot water. And I mean scalding hot water. I don't mean hot water.
Yeah.
Darling, since then, I've drank hot water.
Really?
Yeah, I drink now. Monica, this is the weirdest thing because she was shocked. One, she was shocked that I was in the music business and I don't drink when I met her 15 years ago. But she also couldn't believe I drank hot water. She only drinks hot water. She doesn't drink any tea, any coffee, any juices. I mean, I do have a cup of tea, occasionally a coffee, but
Yeah.
I drink a lot of hot water, and it's boiling hot water. Then the cats, they look at you, go, you're right. And like in McDonald's, you say, can I have a hot water? No, we're not allowed to serve you hot water. What do you mean? Well, could you do me a favour? Can I have a cup of tea, but could you put the tea bag on the saucer, please? Yeah, okay. So, of course, you just threw the tea bag back over the counter. Off you went with your hot water. Now, it's weird because some people charge you £1 for hot water, others sell it to water. Well, any
Okay.
nightclub have to give you a glass of water if you request it because
Yeah.
you can say I'm taking medication, but it doesn't mean they've got to boil it, right? It doesn't mean they've got to boil the water. You can ask for tap water in any venue and they have to give it you, right?
Yeah.
So I've drank since then hot water a lot. I always have hot water in the morning.
Yeah.
If I'm with Monica, I'd probably have 8 hot waters in a day and 3 cups of tea. If
Yeah.
I'm on my own, I'll probably have 10 cups of tea and 3 hot water. So and I said, well, what's that about? He said, it gets rid of all the toxins in your body. First thing in the morning, drink hot water. It wakes up all of your body, all of your senses, everything comes to life
Wow.
quickly. And I learned that from him. And it was a thing that sports people do, and I had no idea. And when I met Monica, and I don't forget, we went out for our first gig together. I took her to some gig, and I'd only known a couple of weeks, and we went, and the guy said, "Oh, what do you want, mate? Do you want a couple of beers?" I said, "Oh no." I said, "Yeah, I bet you ain't got hot water." And she looked. I said, "What are you doing?" Everything right? She said, "I want hot water." And we ordered 2 mugs of hot water in a bar, and we
Yeah.
got them, and we sat there, and she said, "Isn't that hilarious? We sat in this rock venue, both drinking hot water." And that so but that then became a start of an amazing relationship with Chris. I mean, he did that, and that was successful, and we
Yeah.
got paid by the nightclubs to do the
Yeah.
promotion. So that was really, really good. And then I think it was not long after then, that they were happy. Chris loved it, and they said it was great. If you got other things, he
Mm.
wouldn't he wouldn't mind doing some personal appearances. Okay, well, we'll look at that. And then we were invited to a gym to watch him practice. Oh my God, geez, the power of which they hit
Oh
is
my goodness.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
And that started a whole new sort of plethora of things in the sports world, really. And it was just
Oh,
off the
wow.
scale that happened.
Amazing. Amazing. You've
Yeah.
had such a varied life, haven't you? You work with some amazing
Yeah. Oh,
people.
and
You
it's and
really
it's
have.
frightening. How does and it's different things, isn't it? It's like, 1 minute you're with a boxer. I mean,
Yeah.
we went on. The bizarre thing was we did that with Chris. Chris was for us was a personality that was appearing in nightclubs. That
Yeah.
was our relationship. He
Mm,
invited us down to the boxing. He
mm.
then said, "I've got a thing with Sugar Boy Maling. I'm doing these 12 fights for Sky. Would you like tickets?" "Yes, please." Well, we got ringside tickets, which are, 200-300 quid each. We
Mm.
got ringside tickets, and oh, the power with which they hit each other.
Oh
Oof, I
gosh,
was
I can
like, no,
imagine.
that
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
and then Barry Earn, who at the time was doing it all, he'd been massive for snooker, and
Mm.
he was Barry Earn, and he used to call me Baz. I loved it because he would call me, "Come here, Baz."
Yeah.
Then he said, "Look, we do boxing and we do snooker." He said, "We're really pushing the boxing." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Obviously, I'm using them as celebrities." He said, "No, no, I'm fine. I'm happy for to earn money that way." He said, "But
Mm.
how can you help us with the boxing?" I said, "Well, not really. I'm not, what do you want?" He said, "Well, look," he said, "sell us some tickets." I said, "Well, we're not a ticket agency." He said, "You are now." I said,
Mm.
"They are." He said, "You are now." There was a ticket, I think it was Sugar Boy Malinga was at Birmingham NEC. These giant posters went up all over Birmingham, and get your tickets. I mean, most people get things from like Ticketmaster now, but
Yeah.
there was about 5 or 6 box offices on there.
Oh God.
And there was BT Management. I've still got the posters. BT Management, call 012 1477 9553 for your tickets. Uh, and he
Wow.
put our number up, and I'm like, "Really?" Well, so I said to Andy, he's the kid that went, I said, "Well, how do we sell tickets, man? We ain't tickets." He said, "Don't worry, we'll figure it out. If you get order for tickets, give me a call." We then get a phone call from a gym in Birmingham, a boxing gym,
Yeah.
who absolutely hated Barry Earn and his organisation, but
Really?
wanted boxing tickets. So they bought all the tickets off us. We couldn't believe it. We couldn't believe it.
Oh
And
my
and
goodness.
suddenly we're selling these, and I'm like, "This is insane." And it's a lot of physical tickets, and it wasn't all emailed and that. So
Yeah.
you sell the tickets, you'd post them, or they come and collect them, or whatever.
Yeah.
And so so I'm like, "Blimey, we've just made commission on these tickets. This is fantastic." So then, I mean, went even more bizarre because then he said, "Right, we're at the NEC, Baz." He said, "You've been brilliant." He said, "I love working here." He said, "Remind me of me." He said, "What I want to do," he said, "you see up there," he said, "there's 10 boxes up there." I said, "Oh, yeah, the VIP box." He said, "Yeah." He said, "British Telecom, I got that one. BR&B, I got that one." So, and he said, "That one's yours." I said, "Well, I don't want a VIP box, Baz. I ain't paying for a VIP box." He said, "I never asked you to pay." He said, the VIP boxes are worth 10 grand.
Oh my
You've got one."
goodness.
I said,
Ah,
"What do you mean I've got one?" He said, "You've got one." And he said, "Here's the deal. Do what you like with it. Sell it,
oh my
use it.
goodness.
It's your box, do what you like with." And of course, I remember saying to Yusuf, "Well, we got a VIP box. We ain't paying 10 grand. We'd be
Yeah.
stupid not to do it. Let's give it a crack." So we did. And the funniest thing that happened, we had this, next to us was British Telecom, there was BRMB and other, big organisations.
Yeah.
And there was about, in our VIP box, I suppose they held about 20 people, 25, but there was about 7 or 8 in ours.
Yeah.
And they had your private bar and they come in. And I also was, somehow we'll move on to on the next uh, podcast. I'd started working with something new completely, a British diving champion that was trying to go to the Olympics called Tracy Miles. So I took her to the event and I said, listen, I said, you know, when the women get up in the ring and they hold up the card saying round two, can my girl do it? Yeah, definitely. So we had Tracy get in the ring, walk around the ring, you know, round two, bing, bing, bing. Well, they stopped all that, they banned all that, but that it was a big thing to do that because you're all over TV, you're all over the press.
Mm.
So we did that. We and I remember we'd got to go to Sheffield the next day for some training. So I actually left quite early. I said, I'm going to go. I said, have a great time, everybody. We've got the bar. And, you know, I'll speak to you all tomorrow. And we went off to the hotel. And a little bit later, we got this bill for something like, I don't know, several £1,000 for a bar bill. I thought, you buggers, you've run up a bar bill. What are you doing?
Oh
You
my
know, I
gosh.
thought we'd have a bar bill of a few £100.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous. Anyway, I'm reading, I'm like, nah, 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 nah. They don't drink, these people. There's no way they've drunk £7,000
No.
worth of whatever it was. So I phoned the NEC. I said, guys, I said, Barry Tomes from BT Management. I said, there's a bit of a problem. I said, I thought my bar bill was going to be about £400. I'd allocated £500. Thought it'd be £400. I said, it's several thousand. I said, now, unless your people were drinking their own drinks, there's something gone wrong. He said, let me have a look. He said, no, he said, BT Management, that is. I said, yeah, that's me. He said, no, BT Management. I said, well, I'm BT Management. Who are you talking about? He said, I'm talking about BT Management. I said, well, who are they? Well, he was British Telecom. British Telecom Management. I said, hang on. What's happened? He said, well, what's happened is we've sent you their bill for several thousand. I said, does that mean they've had my bill? He said, yeah, your bill was £350. I
Oh my
said,
God.
what? I said, he said, and they've paid it.
Oh, you're
I said,
joking.
they paid my £350 bill. He said, yeah, it's been paid. I said, well, I ain't paying the £7,000. He said, of course you're not. We're going to send him. So they sent them the bill and they paid that. I never paid it. I paid nothing. I got a £10,000 box for nothing, right? Loaded it up. I got a bar bill paid by, because they were called BT Management, British Telecom Management, were, although it
God.
was a phone company. So that was hilarious. Then we went on to, I mean, we did a lot more. We did more stuff with Chris Eubank, but then we got involved. I mean, I had him on Central Weekend and various things. And then we had tickets to see Mike Tyson. We had, I mean, the big fights. We were getting ringside tickets,
Oh my
and I
goodness.
don't, it's the dimples or the aftershave. Something happened because people kept giving him, you know. So, and I never forget. I went all the way to Scotland. Mike Tyson, right? Yeah, okay. Mike will be on in a minute. All right, I'm just going for a quick pee. Dashed out for a pee. I come back in the door. Ding, ding, smack. Mike hit him the first, knocked him out in 13 seconds. I hadn't even got to my seat. I was still at the back of the hall and the bloke had been knocked out. I thought, thank God I didn't pay £500 for a ticket.
Oh my God.
But we did that and we did other stuff, several other boxers we worked with over the time. So I remember, you know, one or two in different parts of the country. And that it just evolved. I mean, that's just what happened, really. It was another thing that we were doing, and we had Chris on some TV shows and that as well. So weird, really, when you think about it.
Amazing. So around this time, you had become a real regular on BBC Radio Shropshire,
That's
you
right,
know,
yeah.
and
Hmm.
and were you enjoying being on the other side of the microphone,
Oh,
or
it
how
was
did you feel
amazing.
about that?
Well, what happened? I took one of my artists up. It was called the Futures Market, so I thought it was about money, you know, investing money. It wasn't. It was about new songs. So it'd be on for 2 hours. We'd go up, we'd take a guest, play their new single. Thank you very much, and we'd go. So then we took up Manazik, who was a Radio 1 DJ, a reggae DJ. We took him up, and he was on. So I went about 3 times, and Mike Breeze said, "Oh, I said, I love you coming up here, Barry. You're brilliant. You're a great laugh." He said, how about becoming a regular guest? I said, what, do you want me to get you something regular? He said, no, I want you to be a guest. Really? I said, what, like bring the new song? He said, no, just come on the show for 2 hours. So for a long time, I went up every Tuesday night up to
Mm,
Shropshire,
yeah,
quite a hike up the M54.
yeah.
And we did it. I remember I took Jackie Graham up then, and I remember taking uh, oh God, it must have been, I don't know, 20 or 30 artists there. But I went and I was just on there.
Mm,
And you know, I had so many people on, but I enjoyed it because I thought this is different again.
Yeah.
This is this is a totally I'm broadcasting and people are ringing in saying we really love what Barry said,
Mm,
and that was, that was just a completely different thing. And that's when I really started to love radio. And of
yeah.
course, I met you guys with one of your shows back
Yeah.
in the day up there. So then I'd done various interviews and I judged talent competitions. So I'd done stuff as a media person,
Yeah.
but I'd never done proper radio. But then I finished up doing well hundreds of shows where I did like I'd often take a guest and the guy would say you're more interesting than your guest, They when you'd ask them where they couldn't remember where they were doing the show, didn't know the name of the new single, couldn't
Oh,
remember the release date, but there was me with all the details.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
so that was another great thing that went on a really long time.
Mm,
Really was a fabulous thing I did, and it was the BBC Radio Shropshire, so it was good, and I
amazing.
felt great doing that. I felt important doing that, and
Mm,
and my payment every Tuesday, his payment was he had loads of new albums because obviously he was being sent all the new releases,
mm.
and my payment was I could choose any one of the albums that had been sent in, and he gave me
Oh,
that, and that was my wages. So,
excellent.
so I loved it, and
Oh,
and,
that's
and
brilliant.
yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. So on the 24th of January 92,
Yeah,
you took your 6-year-old daughter to see Bruno Brooks
that's
record
right.
Love at First
Hmm.
Sight.
Yeah.
That must have been a real special dad moment.
It was because Bruno was again a DJ, Radio One DJ that was doing stuff for us, and we loved him. And he'd suddenly done this TV show called Love at First Sight, and there was a girl on it with him, and my daughter just fell in love with her. And Ty was young, 6
Mm.
or something like that, I think. And anyway, Tara had been to things with me. She'd been to gigs.
Yeah.
Um, and I I spoke to Bruno. I said, well, do you know? He said, yeah, we got people come up. So I said, look, I'd love to bring my daughter. He said, of course you can. So I didn't tell Tara. I just took her. She knew we were going out. We went to this canteen where they were filming it. And as we sat down at the canteen having a cup of tea and a glass of pop or whatever she was having, we Bruno Brooks walks in and she nearly fainted. And,
Oh,
and I've still got the bottle of oil. They had, the body oil. They used
yeah.
to give it the contestants love at first sight, and
Oh,
I've still got that. So amazing. So that
amazing.
was a great dad moment because I was really able to make a dream come true. I spoke to her about it about a week ago when I was writing these notes. She said, "Oh, Dad, I remember it. Still got that bottle of oil now. Still,
Oh, gosh, isn't that
Mm,
amazing?
yeah."
And of course,
But that was a
finally,
dad moment, and you say,
exactly.
what a great thing to do.
Yeah, amazing. And finally, by the end of January, you're at a training camp with Chris Eubank.
Hmm.
You couldn't make it up, could you?
You couldn't, as I say, we'd got him holding buckets up with money, and that was the plan. And then we developed into other things, and then Chris came on to Central Weekend, and I met a girl called Tracy Miles there, and she'd been in the paper the week before. That's why she was on the show,
Yeah,
and she'd gone topless to raise money for the Olympics.
yeah.
She was going to be on what was it? She was going to be on the 1992 Barcelona Olympics was the plan,
Wow.
and she was on there, and I introduced Chris to her, and then she phoned me a few weeks later and says, "Oh, can we have a meeting? About you trying to work with me?" And I
Yeah.
said, "Absolutely," and we did. And the next story, the next big story that we're going to go to is all about that. It's all about suddenly I'm working with someone for the Barcelona Olympics. I'm in the
Wow.
Barcelona Olympic Stadium. I'm doing all sorts of crazy stuff, but with another sports person, which was weird. And she'd come on the show. That she just happened to be on the show I took Chris Eubank to. She was just a guest on the show. So
Amazing.
amazing. So again, this now will start the next podcast talking a lot about Tracy and what she did and how she'd gone topless to raise money from the Sun had paid her,
Mm,
but she almost got disqualified by the Olympic Committee for going topless. But then when I proved them, I saw there's no rules. Where in the rules you say you can't go topless?
yeah.
There's me trying to get away from topless people. I've got a topless guy. Bloody ridiculous. But it sums up my life. So yeah, so that we'd gone all through this rock star stuff and Slade coming
Yeah.
back and boxes. Now it now completely changes again. And I'm doing a lot on Central Weekend, which was a live TV show, but we are now onto a British diving championship for the next couple of years.
Oh my goodness.
So
So
incredible. So I can't wait to tell you all that.
yeah, I mean, when you look back at look at 91 into 92, at that time, did you ever realize how extraordinary your life was? Because you just have an incredible life, don't you?
I don't think so because I'm living it really.
Yeah,
I'm not creating it. I'm just living it. And
yeah.
of course, when I might tell somebody a story, chat on the train or what you doing, I'm doing this, I'm off to meet. Sounds like Monica yesterday went to have tea with the Duke of Gloucester in Kensington Palace,
Oh, wow.
and that it's like she did that like something we do every Friday,
Yeah.
because he's one of our patrons for one of the charities we work with. And
Mm,
and I've never thought this is extraordinary.
mm,
The only time I've really reflected on that is since we started doing the podcast, and I'm
yeah.
thinking, Barry, what were you doing? What were you doing? You know, but you see, I think a couple of things. I think probably more than anything, my sense of humor has got me through it because it's been some
Yeah.
bad times, been a lot of problems, a lot of difficult people, and
Mm,
creative people can be very challenging at times.
yeah. Yeah.
Not necessarily bad, but just challenging because of
Yeah.
their creativity. But it really, to me, was the sense of humor's got me through.
Mm,
I've never chased money. I'm not interested in money.
mm,
I've never chased it. And sometimes when you don't chase things, they come your way. But
mm.
also, I don't differentiate between the dustman and a doctor in life.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
both do a great thing. They both do a
Absolutely.
great thing.
Yeah.
And that is out. And whenever I meet an homeless person, and if I give them a pound or sometimes a sandwich or a drink, I ask them their name. And I said, "What's
Yeah.
your name?" It's John. He said, "What do you want my name for?" I said, "I just want to know your name. I want to call you by your name before I go." "Oh, my name's John." "Well, my name's Barry. Nice to meet you." And I've never differentiated between that and that. And that
Yeah.
allows me to step into both
Yeah.
because I don't judge anybody for where they are in life because
Mm.
life, you know, has its own turns, doesn't it? It takes you to
Yeah.
places you don't expect.
Yeah.
And that really, I think, has been why I've had an extraordinary life because other people say, "Oh no, don't get involved in boxing," or "Oh no, diving. Oh no, what would want to go diving?" I knew nothing about diving. I knew nothing about the Olympics until I went to Ponds Forge in Sheffield, which was a brand new Olympic swimming pool. They built for people to train for the
Yeah.
Olympics. I'd no idea 2 years later I'd be in Barcelona with sunburn on my head because I'd sat by the pool for 5 hours and burnt my head. I never knew that. But
No.
it's because I don't judge people.
Yeah.
I don't have those parameters. Like some
Mm.
people would say, I'll never get involved with. Well, I won't do things that are known to be dangerous. I won't work with known criminals. We might,
Mm.
might nicked a Rolls Royce when we were 15 to have a little
Yeah.
drive the back, but we took it back, we filled it up with fuel. There's nothing wrong with that. But I genuinely think, Jan, the reason it's been so unique is because I don't have those parameters.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
quite happy. We've just talked about the Queen Mum, and
Mm.
I was a big fan of the Royals. I queued up in town for years when I was 14 just to see the Queen come
Yeah.
to the Science Museum.
Yeah.
But also, we've got the Duke of Gloucester's been to a couple of our events. King Charles is the patron of the Faculty of Homeopathy, which I'm
Yeah.
publicist for. So we got a lot of royal connections in that way. And
Mm.
I basically have been to the Middle East. I've stayed in royal palaces. I've stayed in the Sheikh Suite. I've sat down. John Major at a pint of beer, which even his armed guard left the room. There's just me and John Major in a room.
Oh my
And
goodness.
right, and I've been out to fish and chip shops with Jeffrey Archer on a bus, and then we were with Tracy doing promo, so we'll talk about. And he went in a pet shop and he bought her a bone. He bought her a dog bone. I don't know the significance. We all had fish and chips. He bought her a bone, but again, these people are. I mean, Jeffrey Archer was a major bloody writer.
Yeah.
I think he went to prison for something or other.
He did.
But
Yeah.
he was a major writer. He thinks he's just released his last book. Actually, he said this will be the last book I'm going to write.
Yeah.
But there's nobody. None of them. I go. Oh, I think I've told you. I think I've probably told you. The only person that I was ever in awe of was Vera Lynn.
Yeah.
And then I was at a gig with Alvin Stardust, Gary Glitter, The Sweet, Linda Lewis, all the people from Man About the House
Yeah.
and it was at the Saturday Scene Awards, and Vera Lynn came in. Vera Lynn. Now, the only reason that name meant anything to me at the time was because my mom had always talked about Vera Lynn in the war. We got through the war with her
Yeah.
sons. And my nan, who was older, obviously, talked about Gracie Fields, who
Yeah.
was the violin of the World War One, really.
Yeah, yeah.
So I knew these names, we didn't have the radios, we didn't have the telly. It was more you learned stuff through conversation. So I'd heard these names never. And when she came up and I said, Vera Lynn, oh my God, I was in awe of her. And I got
Yeah.
her autograph and I'm like, wow. And then I meet Mark Bolton, he gets out of Mercedes and he goes, hello, Mark, you're right. So I go, yeah, but just a picture. Yeah, of course. So sign here, and I was in awe of Mark Bolan and I loved him, but I was never, so
Yeah.
what, Mark Bolan just got out of a Mercedes in Bond Street and he signed a book for a picture
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's probably a lot of it. But obviously, you've probably yourself, you've known me for years, but probably you've learnt a lot of what I've
Oh,
done because it's just things
absolutely.
repeat.
Yeah.
Wait till you hear the next 10 years or 15 years.
Oh, I
I mean,
can't
it's just,
wait.
it's absolutely astronomical
Yeah.
the things I've been involved with.
Yeah. I
And
can't
and
wait.
and I still am. I mean, the thing is, I still am. I'm still doing this amazing stuff.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm forever indebted to you for doing the podcast because these we can take off to be stories, short
Oh, yeah.
stories. We can record audio version, visual versions. We'll do the books. So it's
Mm,
the protect. Once we get them all locked in and we pack them in over the next year or so, I
mm.
think we'll have a real body of work that
Oh, yeah.
you gotta be pretty strange not to find some of it interesting.
Oh,
You know,
definitely.
you
You
know,
never know. There
even the
might be
fact I
another.
survived it.
You never know. You might get another. We might be able to get a Netflix series out
Well,
soon.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, why not? We're talking to them about a Netflix series for homeopathy. So you never know. So I've got another one. I know a bloke called Barry Tomes. He'd be good. So yeah, so it's again, more amazing things, and the Tracy Miles thing is really interesting.
Yeah.
That is again total fluke, just meeting on TV. I'd seen the thing in the Sun, no idea she was going to be on that Friday on Central Weekend. I was there with Chris Eubank,
Yeah.
and she really liked. And I found it the other day, a beautiful letter. Dear Barry, thank you for you and Darren. You were so sweet to me. You took care of me, made me get to my hotel safe. I really thank you. I'd love to meet with you sometime. And then we agreed to meet. And then a weirdest thing happened a week later. I'm at a photo shoot with one of the artists in London, and
Yeah.
who comes out the studio having just had a picture was this Tracy.
Oh,
And
wow.
that's when we said, if we keep meeting like this, we must be meant to work together.
Yeah.
And we did, and we had the most amazing times. And she went through incredible hard work, trying to get to the Olympics. It's such dedication,
Mm,
but a lot of trauma as well. So
mm,
that's I'm excited to talk about that because it was really funny because when I check the diary and things like that. I was looking, and then I've got a box often with press cuttings and things for all of them. And I found that she wrote so many lovely letters to say
mm.
thank you. I mean, you'd have got an
Oh,
email now or a text. She wrote so many lovely letters saying thank you. I thought
mm.
it was a real tribute to us. She was like a young kid, really. So
Oh,
yeah, so there goes 24.
I know. Amazing. There's another one in the bag.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for your time. I hope people find this interesting. I'm sure they will.
Oh,
I'm
it's
absolutely
brilliant.
certain they will.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much,
No,
Barry.
thank you, my
And
lovely.
I know you're off to,
I'm off to Hong Kong. That's
you
me
are.
now. I'm off to Hong Kong, so that God knows what anything could happen there. Because I'm flying to Beijing first, so anything could happen. You just we might be you might be doing a podcast from Shanghai prison or something. Because I've gone in there and they've said he's a press, he's taking pictures, quick, get him. Who knows?
Oh,
But as long as they
fantastic.
spell my name right. But thank you again, and thank you to anybody that's listened. And I hope you've enjoyed the last hour or so with us. It's been amazing as always.
It
Thank
has.
you.
It has. Thank you
Thanks a
so
lot,
much,
love. Bye
Barry.
bye,
And
darling.
looking forward to next time. Bye
Yeah,
for
thank you.
now.
Bye bye.
Bye
Bye bye, love.
bye. Just let me